Pat Welter, it's just like we thought it would shake out. Duke is the ACC champion. The CFP is set, and we are here on WRAL Triangle and 2 discussing all the playoff matchups, talking about the bowl games, but the postseason for football is here.
It's all short-term negative feedback, Mark. Short-term negative feedback. Manny Diaz playing the hits, Duke not getting into the college football playoff. And that's okay. You know, it's just short-term negative feedback. It's not going to set this program back because they are ACC champs.
I don't think anyone outside of the Duke program genuinely thought, Pat, that Duke deserved a position in the CFP considering the Blue Devils had lost 5 games. But certainly to win the ACC championship game in overtime, the one thing I wanted to ask you to continue this conversation, I know you asked this of Manny Diaz as well. Were you surprised at all that there wasn't more interest for him to be a head coach at another program like we saw what happened with Mike Elko a few years ago?
Absolutely. And I think it's just as fickle as the loss number, or as fickle as if they had gotten into the college football playoff, he still would be on the I don't even know what openings are still out there, but I know there are some as more schools just keep firing their coaches. So I think it is just like as shallow as looking at the loss number. And I don't think that's a very good way to hire a football coach. I think you should look at the totality of it, of the resume, if you will. Look at a college football coach as you do a college football team trying to get into the playoff. And I think he is worthy of bigger and better programs, but I'm happy to have him here, because I think he's great for the Triangle. I think he's been a great fit at Duke. And, yeah, it's kind of the perfect storm where they have this season. They get the ACC championship. If they'd made it to the playoff game, they likely would have gotten smoked. So this way they can at least kind of like preserve the unknown of like, well, what if we'd gotten in? You never know what would have happened. So they'll always have that, and Diaz gets another year to build here.
I don't think that there's a serious argument as a 5-loss school, because it's like I look at put Notre Dame in that conversation before them, BYU. I would also put Texas in over Duke as well. So to say, oh, Duke should have been in over any of those 3 teams, and those 3 teams didn't make it. I think maybe like even your most pie-in-the-sky Duke fan could say maybe the conversation would start there after those 3 teams. But realistically, like, that's not going to happen when they had as many losses as they had, unless you're talking about an expanded playoff format. And, I mean, that's been the discussion certainly in the college football world this week of teams not making the CFP and then not playing in the bowl game. I'm of the thought process, play in the bowl if you're invited to a bowl. Like, it's good for the school. I think it's good for the sport. I understand that it's a television product, but I don't really understand. There are a lot of schools, Notre Dame among them, opting out of a bowl game for the fact that they didn't make the CFP. And I just think that I know it's different than traditionally what we saw growing up, Pat, where players would play in a bowl regardless. And now we see a lot of players sit out if they have NFL futures or if they have futures where they want to transfer. But for the sake of the sport, the pride in the institution, the pride in themselves. And here's another thing, too. Like, we hear from administrators and coaches about how, well, we didn't make the CFP and we fell short of our goal, so we didn't want to play anyways. I haven't heard anything from a single player saying, like, yeah, we want to play. If you're a senior, it's the last time you're going to suit up pads. Or even if you don't have NFL dreams, Pat, or you don't have NFL aspirations, to be able to suit up one more time, you could put something on tape that could change your life. I hear this, and I've talked with players before in my career who have played this sport both in college and professionally, Pat, and they always say, your tape is your resume. You could put one thing on tape that could change the course of your life, even if you don't make the NFL. There's a ton of money to be had in the NIL era, too. So the programs and institutions that are choosing not to play, it's their right to do that. I just think it's the wrong decision, and that's the argument that I would make.
A lot of things to hit on there. I mean, I think overall this year was kind of a perfect storm. And that's the funny thing about the college football playoff is almost every year is a perfect storm because the puzzle pieces are never going to perfectly line up. When it was 4 teams, it was Penn State getting left out when they had beaten Ohio State, and Ohio State gets in, but Penn State had one more loss and a bad loss to Pitt, so they couldn't get in. And that one kind of broke the system right off the bat in the early years of the playoff. And then this year we have this, where we have 2 group of 5 teams get in. And you talk about the discussion of Duke. It wasn't really ever Duke versus Notre Dame, Miami, Alabama. It was Duke versus James Madison and Tulane because of the automatic qualifying bids for conference champs. And you're looking at it, and it kind of breaks your brain because you're like, well, Duke has 5 losses, but I'm pretty sure Duke's probably better than James Madison, who, all due respect to them, and Bob Chesney, who's going to UCLA, the schedule is not the same.
Yeah.
And now even schedules among teams within the same conference are vastly different and not the same. And that's how Duke gets into the ACC title game, because they actually played a challenging schedule, but most of it was in the non-conference, where their losses are to teams like Illinois and Tulane, who's now in the college football playoffs. So you start just twisting yourself inexplicably into knots, and it all becomes now politics, which is really what this is now, where you have Duke saying we should have gotten in, and Manny Diaz coming up there on a stump speech and basically saying things that he may not truly believe in his soul, but he has to say for the right of
course,
insert football team as opposed to political party. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you have Notre Dame, who's playing a completely different sport than the rest of college football in a lot of regards when it comes to they are an independent. They are not just a brand. They are like an institution. Like, full transparency, I am a Notre Dame fan. My father went there. My grandfather went there. My sister went there. My brother went there. Notice I haven't mentioned myself. I did not go there. I had a little bit too much fun in high school. I consider myself a bit of a Renaissance man. Grades were not the top of my priority. I went to another Catholic college, Providence College. So they are a school for Catholic people. They are a school for Irish people. They're obviously a school for everybody, but it represents a whole lot more to a whole lot of other people. And their AD, Pete Pavakwa, is going out there and just trashing the ACC, trashing the playoff committee. I don't really know what leg he really had to stand on, because Miami had to get in because they had the head-to-head. They had the same amount of losses. Alabama played a massively more challenging schedule, and their third loss was in the conference title game to Georgia, a team they'd already beat.
Well, it goes back to your point of, is the conversation of the group of 4 teams that got in, or James Madison and Tulane? And James Madison and Tulane, I think ultimately what we're leading towards is expanding the playoff. But here's the thing is, even if you go to 16, Pat, we're still going to be having these conversations about the fight for 16 to get in. So I do think that the conversation, the discourse is healthy in that regard, where it's like the outside from looking in. Because I remember in the old BCS system, you had 1 loss and your season's done, boom, over with. And then it was the CFP when it was 4 teams and who's going to get the 4 seed. Whatever the threshold is, it's always going to be who could be the team, the outside looking in. I understand the argument of, and I would love to see Tulane or I would love to see James Madison win a game. But I certainly understand the argument of saying they have virtually 0 chance of actually winning the national championship. And I understand that to say whether you want it's Notre Dame or BYU or Texas, to say those teams potentially could have. Would they have? No, they didn't do enough during the regular season to make it. But to say that they would have a better chance than, say, James Madison or Tulane, I think is a fair argument to make. I think it's a fair argument to make.
I don't know what the answer is. Like, I don't think 12 teams is an appropriate number for as far as, because after that, I mean, I'm an AP voter, right? So I'm doing these rankings every week. And soon after 14, typically, you get to just a mishmash of teams that you could go from 14 to 35 and find an argument, and ultimately you're just putting in the teams that had won a big game most recently or didn't lose most recently. Like, there isn't a ton of rhyme or reason to it, but where the college football playoff gets crowded is when you have the automatic qualifiers, and when the teams that are getting the automatic qualifiers don't qualify, if you know what I'm trying to say.
Duke.
And that's what we ran into this year, where they're automatic qualifiers. And they even have the stipulation in there to give you flexibility where it doesn't have to be X, Y, and Z conference. It is the 5 highest ranked conference champs. So there was flexibility built in, but even that didn't save us in this regard. So I'm not sure what you do going forward. It's almost like you need an override clause Like, the ACC could have fixed all of this if they had an override clause, a common sense clause. Like, we're bending over backwards with these tiebreakers without getting to the coin flip at the end.
Well, I had friends asking, they said, how is Miami not in the conference championship game over Duke? And it's just like, well, let me show you all the tiebreaker rules that there are, Pat.
So if they just had some sort of override or like a committee to pick the teams, and I know Manny Diaz almost mentioned like a play-in to the conference championship game, but how many games are we going to play? At a certain point, you have to draw the line.
To Manny's credit, 6-0 against the North Carolina schools. So by that measure, best team in the state back-to-back years. And Sun Bowl against Arizona State, New Year's Eve. That's certainly going to be exciting. But taking down Virginia in overtime, the fourth down pass and then the interception to seal it as well for Duke. Yeah. So it's like, kudos to them for showing up in Charlotte. And again, to say Duke is the ACC champions, we're talking about football here, folks, not basketball either. So,
and I guess we've got to get to our favorite segment of the day, which doesn't have a music open yet, but it's about to, and it's about to have a shirt. And I think I told you I would get a tattoo if Duke made the college football playoff. We have it in writing. It's on text. And I was honestly a little bit nervous because I thought maybe there's a chance that James Madison were to lose, because there was a path for Duke to get in if James Madison were to lose. They did not lose. And the quote of the year from Manny Diaz came in one of his last press conferences before the ACC championship game. He said, "So many moons and stars have to align. The octopus has to choose the Duke helmet." And the octopus chose the Duke helmet for the conference title game. The octopus did not choose Duke for the college football playoff. And I'm just like imagining like a carnival ride, like those octopus kind of circular rides that go up and they go down, and it's like where you come up or where you fall. It's such an incredible quote. It doesn't even make sense. It's like a old Beatles song, like the Walrus, like it's kind of like an old Beatles kind of when they were maybe venturing into some different kinds of medicine, we'll say, in their lyrics.
Oh, man. I'm going to miss these quotes in the offseason. Keep them rolling. And so, in advance of the game, we'll see the Blue Devils going to be tasked stopping Raleek Brown, the running back, Arizona State, 6.1 yards a carry, more than 1,100 yards on the ground. So, we'll see if they can cap off the season. It'll be a 9-win season for Duke if they could beat Arizona State. But, man, shout out Manny Diaz of all the great hits he's played this year. It's been my favorite segment of the show here on WRAL Triangle and 2, Pat.
A true gift to this market. And this is actually a low-key great game. Arizona State in the college football playoff last year, they were right up near the top of the Big 12 for most of the season. A lot of those teams beat themselves. Texas Tech, clearly the cream of the crop in that conference. But Arizona State, a great team and a great coach in Kenny Dillingham that, I believe he's went to that school, so he's staying there. This is a guy that in another world could have been at one of these huge big-time openings. He's choosing to stay at Arizona State. He's got a good thing cooking over there. Diaz has a good thing cooking at Duke. So you might see two teams that actually want to play in this game. And it's in a great window, December 31st. So right in the thick of it.
I got one more thing in this one because we've talked about Darian Mensah and potentially could he be poached in the offseason with how he's played. Duke's paying a pretty penny for him at the quarterback position in the NIL. Keep an eye on freshman running back Nate Shepard as well. He's played outstanding. Someone you would like to continue to see in a Duke uniform, but if another school comes knocking for him, he's played at a really, really high level this year, and especially for a freshman player, Pat. I want to make sure I'm on record, on tape, saying that because he's been a key part of this Duke offense.
Yeah, Manny Diaz, I asked him point blank about Mensah. He said, we expect him to be back. He expects to be back. Reading between the lines, sounds like there might be some negotiations that need to be had. Fair market value, if they can match it. We'll see if he comes back because he's certainly on his way to the NFL with what he's doing right now at Duke, and that's ultimately the goal.
All right, NC State taking on Memphis in the Gasparilla Bowl down in Tampa, Florida, Raymond James Stadium, our old backyard, the Sunshine Paradise. I tell you what, first matchup between NC State and Memphis. This is the 11th bowl appearance for Dave Doeren, who will return in Raleigh for his 14th season, Pat.
Dave Doeren, what a year. And this is a game that almost feels like it doesn't matter. As much as I am excited about the Duke-Arizona State matchup, I can't get too excited about this game in particular, just because I feel like Doeren's story is already written. He's not very good in bowl games. Hasn't won one since 2017. So I don't know if he's necessarily going to win this one. But in so many ways, he's already won. The way he finished this season, going back to the week leading up to the Georgia Tech game, it was all the talk of he's either going to retire, if he doesn't retire, he is going to get fired. Maybe they're going to negotiate something in the middle. And none of those things happened. He even called out Joe Giglio on his retirement report. Joe Giglio, to his credit, handled that with grace. I'm sure that's a very uncomfortable position to be in. I'm sure he wasn't making that opinion lightly as he threw it out on his podcast and other platforms throughout this season. I'm a reporter myself. I understand that sometimes you hear things and we're not ultimately in every single room, so I can understand how maybe that kind of thing happened. But Dave Doeren, not going anywhere, and I don't think he should. I think this was the right call to bring him back when you've got a quarterback in C.J. Bailey. When you look at how this team finished, when you look at, despite the very loud NC State fans on social media that want Doeren out, because I posted after they beat UNC, Doeren ain't going anywhere, because I was told at that game he wasn't going anywhere. And then NC State came straight out and said it on the record that he wasn't going anywhere with a statement from Boo Corrigan. And fans pushed back all over me on social media. It was just an onslaught of takes of fans thinking that we should be better, we need to be better. And I don't disagree with those things, but I think right now, in this current moment, in this current climate, bringing him back for at least one more year and investing more in the roster, bringing back C.J. Bailey is the path for now.
I wrote a column about a year ago, and honestly, you could just recycle it and update some of the facts from this season on WRALSportsFan.com about how Dave Doeren's tenure has been a double-edged sword, where you know what the floor is, but you have a limited ceiling. And I look at 7-5, and is that exactly where you want to be? No, but I look at how college football is right now with all the head coaching vacancies that there were, and in some cases still are. Stability is not a bad thing here. And yes, you want it to be better than 7-5, but a few things. You go into next offseason where he gets closer to the buyout, where the buyout lowers as time goes on, a year goes on, and then maybe there aren't as many vacancies a year from now. There were so many vacancies at major Power 4 schools all over the country. To get rid of Dave Doeren and then to bring in the unknown isn't necessarily better at this point in time relative to there are other schools with more of a history and with more backing, with more resources, and more money than NC State has, to where they would be better positioned to get the coach that they actually want, versus if NC State had a vacancy, what I would have said is good luck just given all the other vacancies in the schools that you're competing against to try to go get that head coach of the future, that head coach that can actually lead you to a conference championship. So for right now, I don't think stability is the worst thing in the world. Outside of that blowout loss to Miami towards the end of the year, the Wolfpack finished the back half of the season pretty strong, other than that Miami loss. So, I mean, what a roller coaster of a season, because they started out 3-0, things tanked, and then to salvage the season, here you are playing in yet another bowl game. So, again, and two guys to watch, C.J. Bailey, Hollywood Smothers. Are they going to be back next year beyond this bowl game? And then, Smothers is the ACC top rusher. Don't forget Caden Fordham on the defensive side of the ball, league's leading tackler as well. So another opportunity to see the Wolfpack. They'll be December the 19th in the Gasparilla Bowl, Pat. But
also kind of a fun window, right? Because it's early in the bowl season, really soon. And if you're an NC State fan that want to travel, Tampa, awesome place to be. You and I both have ties to Florida, both work down there. I've actually never attended the Gasparilla Bowl, believe it or not.
See, before it moved to Raymond James Stadium, it used to be played at Tropicana Field in St. Petersburg, where the Tampa Bay Rays played. If you've ever seen a football game there, I can't remember if I went to a Gasparilla Bowl, Pat, or it might have been, you know what it was? It was the Shriners Bowl. There was a college football all-star game after the college football season, but in advance of the NFL draft. And it is just, it's a weird venue even for baseball, but for football, make weird even weirder. And so they moved it to Raymond James Stadium where the Tampa Bay Buccaneers play. So they're going to be playing at an NFL stadium. And it's an awesome venue. I mean, this time of year, too, to be down in Florida in December, certainly there are a lot worse places to be.
Yeah, I've been to the Outback Bowl. I saw Minnesota back when PJ Fleck was running it hot early in his career there, which is also at Raymond James. And they're going to play Memphis, who is one of the really under the radar things about this college football season was how good the American Conference was. And this is a conference that's lost UCF, has lost Cincinnati, that were their kind of crown jewels for a few years. And you thought maybe the conference would just kind of fall into oblivion. It hasn't. This whole conference is full. Like, you want to go find a coach? Go dig in the American.
Okay.
Because North Texas was favored against Tulane in the conference title game. They did not win that game, mind you, despite the favorite. But that's a program on the rise that's kind of taking – it's a lot of teams that are like in fertile recruiting areas, but maybe they're the second or third team in their state. So North Texas, that's the Dallas area. Okay, so Texas, full of players. So if you get a coach in there, they can make the most of it. UCF, who was there before, well, that's Florida. It's Orlando. Cincinnati, who was in the American before. Ohio. Tulane. New Orleans. So it's kind of full of that. And Memphis is another one. Tennessee, where you have Tennessee, your Vanderbilt, and Memphis, which is another place where people can build a program. So I think it's a great kind of interesting thing to look at. USF had another great year. So this conference was actually kind of a rotation of teams getting into – is Houston? No, Houston's in the Big 12. But there was just a rotation of teams kind of getting into the top 25. Memphis was among them. So this is not going to be an easy game. And Doeren has not won a bowl game since 2017, the Sun Bowl, coincidentally enough, against Arizona State. He's due.
There it is. Pat, before we wrap up here, any other legendary road stories? I don't want to put you on the spot too much here, but you always have something here to wrap WRAL Triangle into that is always humorous, we'll say.
I mean, I'm deep in Elf on the Shelf here. We're deep in it.
Okay.
And
I don't partake. So.
I mean, it's really fun, and a lot of parents talk about this. I mean, I would love to do some of the the naughty Elf on the Shelf renderings.
Don't get us in trouble. Don't get us in trouble.
The Elf on the Shelf had a little bit too much fun last night, kiddos, but he left you some treats.
Okay.
But no, you can put those in your computer. But it's a challenge for creativity, and this year my big challenge, Mark, is I have a 1-year-old. So all the ideas I want to have, where I want to pose the Elf on the Shelf with the Ninja Turtles fighting against Shredder. That's something I did last year. It was awesome. I'm having actually way too much fun doing this, living through my child's toys. But now this year, I can't do anything on the ground because my 1-year-old will just blow it up. And the mythology of the Elf on the Shelf is you can't touch him. If you touch him, his magic dies. Okay, that's the rule, the mythology behind it. So the other night, my son tells me, he's like, I want the Elf. I think the Elf on the Shelf is going to be on top of the TV. So I took a note on that. I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to do that and make it seem like, the Elf on the Shelf was listening. That not that I put it there, that the Elf was listening. So I put the Elf below the TV on the sound bar, and we have it's mounted above the fireplace kind of a thing, and you can swivel it. So this weekend, we're loaded with games, right? We've got conference title games. We've got our college basketball teams playing. We've got the Hurricanes playing.
It was a crazy weekend. And the Panthers were on a bye week.
The Panthers were on a bye week. Great moment for that. Selection Sunday as well. So I've got the TV swiveled at one point, forgetting that the Elf on the Shelf is right there. I totally forgot. So I swivel the TV over, and after dinner, we come over, and the kids are like, oh, no, Elfie fell over. And then they look at me, they go, Daddy, you knocked him over. Did you touch him? He's not going to be magic anymore. And my heart sank, got kind of that hot feeling. But I was like, no, kiddos, I didn't touch him. Just the TV did. The TV knocked him over. Magic preserved, day saved. But it was almost a crisis because he easily could have fallen off onto the floor, lost his magic. All the beautiful Santa stuff we're going through right now would be over. All my fault because I was trying to watch 4 games at once.
You could have blamed it on Shredder.
Of course. The villain. Shredder.
That's what I would have done. Legendary villain from Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, I always wanted to get the ooze. I always wanted to fall in a pit of toxic ooze, like in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2. Have you seen that one? Have you seen that one where he falls into the pit of ooze and like breaks the like docks? He becomes Super Shredder.
Hey, this is my cue. I need to go do some homework.
I might be a little bit older than you.
He's the one and only Pat Welter. I am Mark Bergin. This has been another edition of WRAL Triangle of 2 on YouTube. If you haven't already, hit that like and subscribe button. And Apple and Spotify, we're still trying to get those 5-star reviews. Leave a 5-star review. If it's funny, we'll read it here on the show. Pat, as always, a pleasure.
Yeah, college football has just got dumped in a vat of toxic shredder goop. It is out of control.
So long, everybody.